Hey, Daryl here, and this is my daily devotional. God called Abram, said, I'm going to make a great nation out of you. The time came with Jacob, his kids, Joseph, was taken to Egypt into slavery, but there he rose to power in Egypt, saving from the famine. And then, as time passed, people forgot about what had happened. The Israelites became slaves, but they grew in great number due to the promise God had given Abraham. Now it says over 600,000 men, not including women and children, were on the caravan that escaped Egypt on their way to the promised land. Now, this is not modern day. This is not modern day medicine. This is not modern day refrigeration. This is, imagine, so primitive when it comes to things such as being able to eat safely, being able to address illnesses, and there wasn't the medications. And so we get to Leviticus about chapter 11 or 12 and several verses and chapters further on. You can get bogged down with all the regulations. But the purpose of these was simply so God's people would continue to grow to be able to create this new wonderful nation of God's people. For instance, we begin with the eating regulations, what they were to eat, what they weren't to eat. Why? Well, we'll take the pig, for instance. And there is something that just grossed me out just yesterday. You see, they didn't have the modern day ways of purifying, and the worms, I know it's nasty to think of, would get in there, and if the meat wasn't properly prepared, would infest a person. Had a spiral ham a week or so ago, and the bone, nice and meaty still, was given to our dogs. And then just yesterday, I was outside and I kicked the bone, and underneath the bone was all these little worms. Just grossed me out. They were not maggots from flies. I know the difference. This was just, it almost turned me against ham. The point is, that's why God gave these eating restrictions, to reduce the illnesses so the people would grow. Continuing on, he gives purification processes for the children. For instance, at birth, 8 days later, the boy was to be circumcised. Why? They didn't have modern day hygiene techniques at that time. And underneath that foreskin, great infections can be. And so it tremendously alleviated those problems. So there, the children could grow to adults and continue the process of growing Israel into a great nation. And then you get into all the processes of the infectious diseases, such as skin diseases and such, and how they were to examine these skin diseases. And I don't know exactly specifically, maybe it was a type of melanoma they were dealing with. Maybe it was a leprosy they were dealing with. I don't know. But there was a specific process. Why? So God's people would continue to grow. And it talks about the way bodies sometimes discharge due to infections, and how all this was to be handled. And then we come to the place in Leviticus chapter 15, verse 31, where we see this important verse brought out of all of this. You must keep the Israelites separate from things that make them unclean, so they will not die in their uncleanness for defiling my dwelling place, which is among them. They were to be kept separate. That's another way of saying they were to be kept holy. Holiness means separateness. Separate from the things that would be unclean, because those things that would be unclean could cause an epidemic. and create health issues that would not allow God's people to grow. You see, God's in charge of it all, and he knew exactly what they needed to do to fulfill the promise that they would be the great mighty nation that they are today. God bless you. Good day.